Substitute says we are going to be the ruining of America, so I put her out of a job. Little bit of backstory. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and I'm slightly autistic, not a lot, but just enough to be considered on the spectrum. In this case, I would have trouble reading someone's social cues, keeping my mouth shut, interrupt people, understand someone else's feelings, and understanding conveying some emotions. I had little self-confidence and always asked what I should do, even if it was my decision on things. Due to my autistic characteristics, sometimes using a baby voice, which was my voice becoming higher pitchy or squeaky when I became anxious. Despite being slightly autistic, I didn't struggle with grades. I worked hard despite having autism and gave it my all in every subject I had. Even though I didn't necessarily struggle with subject, at certain times of the day I asked questions, at times a lot of questions. So I sometimes would ask questions in a way that would answer what I really want to ask and not seem stupid. Another bit of background is that the middle school I went to had thick stone walls and a very heavy door. There could be a fight in the classroom and you would barely hear anything in the hallways. So this story. Throughout my school years, I always had amazing teacher. The story. Throughout my school years, I had always had amazing teacher. My mom and dad were very involved with the school and as a result the teachers and the principals knew me. They didn't necessarily give me special treatment due to my disability or the relationship with my family, but I still felt that they knew me better than most other students. Every day around lunch, my morning medication wore off. I usually had to go to the nurse's office to take medication for my attention deficit disorder. As such, I would come 2 to 3 minutes late to my third book class. My third block class was English. My teacher in that class understood that I had autism and wouldn't get upset when I asked obvious questions or was running a few minutes late to her class. One day, I had just came from the nurse's office and opened the door to my third block class. At my English teacher's desk was a woman in her late 40s, wearing a shirt with America on it. The class was usually louder than this, since we had just came back from lunch, but it was dead silent. The woman, our substitute teacher, turned towards me with a very foul expression on her face. Why are you late? As previously mentioned, I'm slightly autistic and lack of self-confidence, and back then I had the tendency to stutter and not look people in the eyes. I just came from the nurse's office. Are you sick? No, I just needed... Then sit down, she said, interrupting me. I sat down on my desk and class proceeded. I had never had a sub-O teacher like this before, but I thought she might just be in a bad mood. You know, it happens. After a few minutes, she passed our packets for us to work on, and the class began working on them. I had looked at the title of the packet and it was the book we were working on, but it was on the next chapter, not the one we had read yesterday. We hadn't done the packet on the previous chapter or read the chapter for the packet we were just given. I raised my hand. Yes? This is for the next chapter. Did you want us to read this chapter silently? Yes. I was going to do that anyway, but this was my attempt at clarifying if she had meant to pass this out and not previous chapter packets. I guess I broke the class's silent streak, as several of my classmates would get up and ask her questions about the packet. I would get up twice and ask her questions, but the only reply she would give were, just read the book or just make a guess. The answer key was on the desk, but she didn't make the effort to check. It was clear to everyone else that she was becoming agitated, but because I had trouble reading social cues, I didn't see it until it was too late. The third time I got up, she was already huffing. I wanted to ask her if this was the kind of answer the question was asking without directly asking for the answer, but my brain got ahead of me. Would this be correct? Are you seriously asking for me to give you the correct answer for you? I started to stutter when I tried to reply, but she didn't give me the chance. How do you all not understand? You're the next generation of the world and you're asking me the obvious questions. But it's obvious to you because you know the answers. In my mind, I was just making a statement about how she was more knowledgeable than us because she was an adult. However, she had interpreted it as me saying that the only reason she knew the answers to the sheet is because she had seen the answer key, basically calling her stupid. This sets her off. I've already graduated, y'all should be smarter than this, but instead your kids are going to be ending up ruining America. The class went silent. I was back to my seat and continued working. Meanwhile, she continued to go off on us, but not yelling like the last outburst. The bell rang and everyone in the class left. Most shrugged it off, others said they would tell their parents, but I was having none of it. I had always been the person to not get angry until I couldn't contain my anger, but in this case I was ready to explode. During the next block, I asked the teacher of that class if I could talk to the counselor about something and help me control my frustrations. She let me and I headed to the office. I wanted to tell the counselor about what happened and maybe she could do something. I asked the woman in the office if I could talk to the counselor. She told me that the counselor was talking to the principal, so just wait outside. My medication had kicked in and at this point it couldn't have done so at a better time. As soon as she said that, my eyes lit up. This was perfect. The revenge. Inside the principal's office, the counselor was sure enough to talking to the principal. I was told to wait outside, but my plan needed them both in there at the same time. I went in anyway. Inside, I tapped on the counselor's back to get her attention. I'm in the middle of something. Is there something you need? I made sure I was close enough to the principal to hear my reply. Yes. Could you and I talk about the hurtful things the substitutes teacher said? I wanted her out the school and never near a school again. Just as a plan, the principal intervened. If you don't mind, could you explain what you meant by hateful things? After I explained what happened, the principal called some of my classmates from my third block to verify this, after others reported the same and even the new ones. The next day, my English teacher was back and the substitute wasn't seen at school again. It turns out that she was applying for teaching jobs. I don't know all the details, but I'm fairly certain she didn't get it. In fact, before I left middle school, it turned out I had caused her not only getting the job here, but in the district. I've since graduated high school with honors and even got first place in a writing competition. I don't know what all happened to her, but even though she said all those things, I still hope she found a job and is better now.